Everything changed while you were in the hospital. This house is no longer yours. You have no place here. Find somewhere else to live." I froze. The surgical wound in my hip throbbed. I couldn't believe those words were coming from my only son, the one I had dedicated my entire life to. I had been hospitalized for 3 weeks due to complications from my hip replacement surgery. I came home hoping to reunite with my family, only to find the door shut on the home David and I had built over 30 years of marriage. In that moment, I understood something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just about my home. There was a darker scheme I couldn't yet see. If you've ever wondered what happens when a mother is pushed to her limit, keep watching and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. Coming home to Betrayal. My discharge papers crinkled in my pocket as the Uber pulled up to my craftsman-style house. 21 days felt like forever. Complications from my hip replacement had kept me fighting fever and infection while life went on without me. I was exhausted but relieved to finally be home. The 2-story house David and I had lovingly restored during our 30 years of marriage stood before me in the late afternoon light. The roses I'd planted decades ago still bloomed by the walkway, though they needed care after my absence. "Need help with your bags, ma'am?" the driver asked, seeing my walker. "Just to the door, please," I replied. "My son should be waiting." The front door opened before we reached it. Michael, my only son, stood in the doorway. But he didn't have the smile I expected. His face was cold, distant, firm. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of his wife, Patricia, and her parents. "Michael, what's going on?" I asked, moving forward with my walker. He blocked the entrance. "There's no easy way to say this. Things changed while you were in the hospital. This house is no longer yours. Patricia's parents needed to move from Dallas, and this house has more space than you need. The paperwork is done. You'll have to find somewhere else to live." My mind struggled to process his words. Paperwork? I hadn't signed anything to transfer my house. "Michael, this is insane. Let me into my house right now." Patricia appeared beside him, wearing my emerald earrings, David's gift for our 25th anniversary. "Margaret, we've already packed your things. They're in boxes in the garage. We can send them wherever you're staying." From behind them, Patricia's parents, Frank and Linda Carter, emerged. Frank, tall with silver hair, had always struck me as arrogant. Linda never hid her disdain for my home. "The house was legally transferred," Frank said, not sounding apologetic at all. "Legally?" I managed to say. "That's impossible." Michael's face hardened. "Joint ownership, Mum. Remember when I convinced you to add me to the deed 5 years ago for estate planning? I can transfer my share, and you signed a quitclaim deed for your portion before your surgery. You were anxious about the operation. You signed the papers without reading them." The revelation hit me hard. Yes, I had signed papers Michael brought to the hospital. He said they were just medical consent forms. I was terrified about the surgery. I trusted my son completely. "You tricked me," I said. "We're doing what's best for everyone," Patricia jumped in. "This house is too much for you to maintain alone." "Don't come back here," Michael finished firmly. "The decision is final." I stood there, leaning on my walker, staring at the son I had raised. The boy I'd read bedtime stories to, the man whose college tuition I'd paid by working double shifts at the bank. Now he was a stranger. "This is theft," I said quietly, "and you know it." "It's done," he replied coldly. Something broke inside me then, but not in the way they expected. No tears, no begging. It was a cold, clear determination I hadn't felt since my years as a bank compliance officer. "Enjoy it then," I said simply, turning away. "Enjoy everything." As I limped toward the street, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text message to Sandra Martinez. Plan B, discovering the truth. The hotel room in downtown Phoenix was basic but clean. My hands still shook as I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. Sandra replied immediately, "Stay safe." On my way. Sandra Martinez and I had been friends for 40 years, since college. She became a tough lawyer while I built my career in bank compliance. After David's death 3 years ago, she'd helped me organize my affairs with thoroughness. Always have a backup plan, she'd told me, especially when it comes to family and money. At the time, I thought she was being dramatic. Now her advice seemed prophetic. When she arrived, despite the late hour, Sandra looked sharp in her tailored suit, but her expression was pure anger. "Those vultures!" she hissed as she hugged me carefully. "Are you okay?" "I'm still standing," I said, sinking onto the bed. "The rest—" "I keep thinking I'll wake up and this will be a fever dream." She set her briefcase on the desk and started pulling out files. "The trust David set up is solid. This house transfer won't hold up legally, but Margaret, there's something else. Something I found when I started reviewing your accounts." My stomach clenched. "What is it?" "Unusual withdrawals from your investment accounts. Started about 2 months ago. Large withdrawals." She handed me a printed statement. I scanned it quickly, my banking experience immediately spotting the irregularities. 8 transfers totaling over $180,000. All to accounts I didn't recognize, all made with digital signatures supposedly from me. "While I was barely conscious in the hospital," I whispered, "they didn't just take my house. They've been draining my accounts." Over the next few days, Sandra's investigation revealed a horrifying pattern. The Carters were systematically buying up my entire neighborhood through a shell company, using funds stolen from my accounts as seed capital. They had filed for a zoning change that would multiply the property values, netting them millions. Property records showed they'd already bought 3 houses on my block. Their history in Dallas revealed a pattern of targeting vulnerable seniors with predatory loans. This wasn't just a family betrayal, it was a sophisticated criminal enterprise, and my son had helped them use my home as its base. "And Michael?" I asked, finally voicing the question that had been haunting me. "How involved is he?" Sandra showed me security footage from 3 weeks ago at First National Bank. Michael and Patricia entering together, meeting with a loan officer. The timestamp showed it was 2 days after my surgery, while I was still heavily sedated. "They used power of attorney to access your safe deposit box," Sandra explained. "They removed the original deed and David's trust documents." Then she showed me emails between Patricia and her father, dated 8 months ago. They discussed their plans in barely disguised language, identifying properties in my neighborhood, evaluating which homeowners would be vulnerable. Most disturbing, they mentioned my house as their operation center once they gained control. One phrase made my blood run cold. "Mother-in-law scheduled for surgery in March. Recovery typically 6 to 8 weeks. Accelerated timeline possible." "They were waiting for this," I said, the horrible truth dawning. They knew I'd be vulnerable after surgery. My own son hadn't just betrayed me. He'd done it with planning and cold calculation. "What do you want to do?" Sandra asked quietly. I turned to her, my decision crystal clear. I want justice, not just for me, but for everyone they've hurt or planned to hurt. And I want my house back. "Then we need to move carefully," Sandra said. "They think they've already won. That gives us the element of surprise." "Good," I replied, "because I'm about to give them the surprise of their lives." "Margaret, are you sure about this?" Sandra asked with concern. "Your hip is still healing." "I spent 21 days in that hospital bed, feeling helpless," I replied, applying lipstick with a steady hand. "I'm done with helplessness." After discovering the full scope of the fraud, we'd taken our evidence to the Phoenix Police Fraud Division. The investigators had been watching the Carters for months, but lacked the inside access we could provide. We made a deal. They'd hold off on immediate arrest to let us gather more solid evidence, and in return, I'd have priority in recovering my assets. "Patricia's salon appointment starts in 30 minutes, Sandra confirmed. "Frank and Linda are viewing a property across town. Michael won't be back from work until 5. I took a deep breath. "Let's go." The rideshare dropped me 2 blocks from my house. I walked slowly, using the walker more for appearance than actual need. As I approached, I noticed changes. The roses I'd tended for years were gone. The porch furniture David and I had restored was nowhere to be seen. I didn't go to the front door. Instead, I circled around to the side entrance. In my rush to get to the hospital, I'd forgotten to have Michael return the spare key. For years, it had been our secret. Michael as a teenager used it to sneak in after curfew. The key turned easily. I entered silently, immediately hearing unfamiliar voices from my study. Following the sound, I stopped at the half-open door. "The closing with the Martinez property is scheduled for Friday," a man's voice said, Frank Carter's. "Once that's done, we'll control 40% of the block." "And the Henderson property?" another voice asked. "Already handled." We used Mrs. Bennett's banking credentials to secure the financing. Clean as a whistle. My hand tightened on my walker. They were using my name, my banking reputation, to orchestrate their frauds. Exactly what we needed to prove. I activated the voice recorder on my phone before pushing the door open. The scene froze. Frank Carter sitting behind David's antique desk. His partner standing by the window, both staring at me with shock. "Hello, Frank," I said calmly. "Discussing business in my study?" "Margaret," he recovered quickly, standing. "How did you get in?" "Through the door," I replied. "The same door to the house that still legally belongs to me." His partner looked between us uncomfortably. "Mr. Carter, should I come back later?" "No need," I answered. "I just came to pick up some papers." Frank's expression hardened. "This property is no longer yours." Michael was clear about that. "Yes, he was," I nodded, walking toward the filing cabinet. "Very clear, just as clear as you were about using my banking credentials for your financing operations." Colour drained from Frank's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I opened the cabinet drawer. "The Henderson property." "Using my information. I just heard you discussing it." The partner started backing toward the exit. "Mr. Carter, I think I should go." "Margaret is confused," Frank said brusquely. "Her recent hospitalization affected her mental state." I smiled coldly. "My mind is perfectly clear. Clear enough to understand what you, Linda, and Patricia are planning." I raised my phone, clearly showing the recording app. "And I made sure to get proof." His eyes widened with fury. "Give me that phone." "I don't think so." I backed toward the door, my heart pounding. As I turned to leave, Frank lunged forward, grabbing my arm with bruising force. Sharp pain shot through my still-healing hip. "Let go of me," I demanded, raising my voice intentionally. At that moment, the front door burst open. "Phoenix Police! Hands where we can see them!" Detectives Morrison and Chen rushed in, weapons drawn. Frank froze, then slowly released my arm, raising his hands. Our contingency plan, activated by the emergency alert app on my phone, had worked perfectly. "Mrs. Bennett," Detective Morrison approached. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I replied, leaning against the doorframe, "and I think I have something you'll find very interesting." 3 hours later, I sat in an unmarked police car parked across from my house. Evening light was fading. Patricia's car sat in the driveway. She'd returned from her salon appointment, completely unaware her father was being processed at the police station. Michael's car was there too. He'd come home early. My heart sank. I'd hoped to spare him the public scene of what was about to happen. 3 police vehicles pulled up in front of my house. Officers emerged, some wearing police jackets. "Phoenix Police, we have a warrant." The words carried clearly as they approached the front door. Through my window, I saw Patricia in the doorway, her face shifting from confusion to shock. Behind her, Michael appeared. "It's time," Morrison said. "Please stay behind us." As we crossed the street, neighbours emerged from their homes. Patricia saw me first approaching behind the officers. Her composure shattered. "You," she spat, "you did this." Michael's eyes locked on mine. His expression shifted from confusion to horror as he understood I was with the police. "Mum," his voice cracked. "What's going on?" "Your mother provided evidence of large-scale financial fraud by the Carter family," Detective Chen stated formally. "We have a warrant to search these premises." "Fraud?" Michael repeated, looking genuinely confused. "What fraud?" "Frank was very clear this morning about using my banking credentials to secure fraudulent financing," I said. "In my study. In my house." Patricia's face drained of colour. "You were here?" "How?" "The side door," I replied simply. "Like the fact it legally belongs to a trust David created, which can't be transferred without signatures from all trustees, including Sandra, who certainly never signed anything." "Mrs. Bennett, Patricia, we need you to come with us for questioning," Morrison said. I didn't go to the front door. Instead, I circled around to the side entrance. In my rush to get to the hospital, I'd forgotten to have Michael return the spare key. For years, it had been our secret. Michael as a teenager used it to sneak in after curfew. The key turned easily. I entered silently, immediately hearing unfamiliar voices from my study. Following the sound, I stopped at the half-open door. "The closing with the Martinez property is scheduled for Friday," a man's voice said, Frank Carter's. "Once that's done, we'll control 40% of the block." "And the Henderson property?" another voice asked. "Already handled." We used Mrs. Bennett's banking credentials to secure the financing. Clean as a whistle. My hand tightened on my walker. They were using my name, my banking reputation, to orchestrate their frauds. Exactly what we needed to prove. I activated the voice recorder on my phone before pushing the door open. The scene froze. Frank Carter sitting behind David's antique desk. His partner standing by the window, both staring at me with shock. "Hello, Frank," I said calmly. "Discussing business in my study?" "Margaret," he recovered quickly, standing. "How did you get in?" "Through the door," I replied. "The same door to the house that still legally belongs to me." His partner looked between us uncomfortably. "Mr. Carter, should I come back later?" "No need," I answered. "I just came to pick up some papers." Frank's expression hardened. "This property is no longer yours." Michael was clear about that. "Yes, he was," I nodded, walking toward the filing cabinet. "Very clear, just as clear as you were about using my banking credentials for your financing operations." Colour drained from Frank's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I opened the cabinet drawer. "The Henderson property." "Using my information. I just heard you discussing it." The partner started backing toward the exit. "Mr. Carter, I think I should go." "Margaret is confused," Frank said brusquely. "Her recent hospitalization affected her mental state." I smiled coldly. "My mind is perfectly clear. Clear enough to understand what you, Linda, and Patricia are planning." I raised my phone, clearly showing the recording app. "And I made sure to get proof." His eyes widened with fury. "Give me that phone." "I don't think so." I backed toward the door, my heart pounding. As I turned to leave, Frank lunged forward, grabbing my arm with bruising force. Sharp pain shot through my still-healing hip. "Let go of me," I demanded, raising my voice intentionally. At that moment, the front door burst open. "Phoenix Police! Hands where we can see them!" Detectives Morrison and Chen rushed in, weapons drawn. Frank froze, then slowly released my arm, raising his hands. Our contingency plan, activated by the emergency alert app on my phone, had worked perfectly. "Mrs. Bennett," Detective Morrison approached. "Are you all right?" "Yes," I replied, leaning against the doorframe, "and I think I have something you'll find very interesting." 3 hours later, I sat in an unmarked police car parked across from my house. Evening light was fading. Patricia's car sat in the driveway. She'd returned from her salon appointment, completely unaware her father was being processed at the police station. Michael's car was there too. He'd come home early. My heart sank. I'd hoped to spare him the public scene of what was about to happen. 3 police vehicles pulled up in front of my house. Officers emerged, some wearing police jackets. "Phoenix Police, we have a warrant." The words carried clearly as they approached the front door. Through my window, I saw Patricia in the doorway, her face shifting from confusion to shock. Behind her, Michael appeared. "It's time," Morrison said. "Please stay behind us." As we crossed the street, neighbours emerged from their homes. Patricia saw me first approaching behind the officers. Her composure shattered. "You!" she spat. "You did this!" Michael's eyes locked on mine. His expression shifted from confusion to horror as he understood I was with the police. "Mum," his voice cracked. "What's going on?" "Your mother provided evidence of large-scale financial fraud by the Carter family," Detective Chen stated formally. "We have a warrant to search these premises." "Fraud?" Michael repeated, looking genuinely confused. "What fraud?" "Frank was very clear this morning about using my banking credentials to secure fraudulent financing," I said. "In my study. In my house." Patricia's face drained of colour. "You were here? How?" "The side door," I replied simply. "Like the fact it legally belongs to a trust David created, which can't be transferred without signatures from all trustees, including Sandra, who certainly never signed anything." "Mrs. Bennett, Patricia, we need you to come with us for questioning," Morrison said. "Your father is already in custody," I said calmly. "Your mother too. The police are searching your Dallas offices right now. It's over, Patricia." Her face twisted with rage as officers guided her into the car. Michael remained on the porch, watching as other officers entered our house with equipment. "Mum," he said quietly as I turned to follow Sandra back to our car. "I didn't know everything they were planning." "You have to believe me," I paused, looking at him. "Maybe you didn't know everything. But you knew enough, Michael, and you still chose them over me." As I walked away, I heard his broken voice. "Where am I supposed to go now?" I didn't look back. That question echoed the same one I'd faced when he threw me out. The symmetry wasn't lost on me, but unlike my son, I found no satisfaction in his pain, only deep sadness for what we'd both lost. 3 days later, I sat across from Michael in a detention centre interview room. His public defender, Kevin Park, sat beside him. Michael looked dishevelled, wrinkled clothes, unshaved, hollow eyes. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Here I am," I replied, keeping my voice calm. Tense silence stretched between us. "Mrs. Bennett," Kevin Park finally spoke, "my client requested this meeting to clarify certain aspects of the situation." "I'm listening," I replied, my gaze fixed on Michael. Michael cleared his throat. "First, I want you to know I never wanted things to go this far. When Patricia talked about her parents moving to Phoenix, it was supposed to be temporary." "And the quitclaim deed," I interrupted. "The one you tricked me into signing." He looked down, shame evident. "That was Patricia's idea. She said it was just a precaution." "But you used it to transfer my house and empty my accounts," I accused. "The account transfers were all Patricia and Frank," he said. "They said they were moving funds to safer investments." I didn't know they were actually stealing. "The house," I insisted. "You stood at the door and told me it was no longer mine." "Patricia convinced me it was for the best," he whispered. "She said the house was too much for you, that you'd be happier in a senior living community. I thought we were helping you." "By kicking me out with just the clothes on my back." My calm began to crack. "That's not helping, Michael. That's cruelty." "I know," he whispered. "Now I know." "What did they have on you?" I asked suddenly. "What power did they have that made you betray your own mother?" Michael looked up sharply. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. "She deserves to know," Michael said. He took a deep breath. 3 years ago, I made bad investments, lost a lot of money, our savings, part of our retirement. I was desperate to recover it before Patricia found out. Frank offered to help, said he had solid investment opportunities. "He loaned you money?" I guessed. Michael nodded. "At first. Then it got complicated. I signed papers, got involved in their business deals without understanding what they were. By the time I realized, I was already caught up in their schemes. They had leverage over me. They were blackmailing you, Sandra observed. They owned me, Michael corrected bitterly. Patricia made it clear that if I didn't cooperate, her father would make sure I took all the blame for their previous deals. I tried to process this. And my house, that was a test of loyalty. He nodded, shoulders sagging with shame. To prove I was committed, Patricia said once the rezoning went through, we'd make enough money to set you up somewhere comfortable. Did you actually believe that? I couldn't hide my disbelief. I wanted to believe it, he replied quietly. It was easier than facing what I was really doing. The brutal honesty hit me hard. For the first time since this nightmare began, I glimpsed the sun I remembered. Michael, I said carefully, what exactly are you asking of me today? For the first time, he held my gaze directly. Nothing, Mom. I don't deserve your help or forgiveness. I just needed you to know I never meant to hurt you. I was weak. I was scared. I made terrible decisions. Whatever happens now, I'll accept it. Before I could respond, Detective Morrison entered. Sorry to interrupt. Mrs. Bennett, there's been a development. She placed documents on the table, a life insurance policy, in my name, taken out 14 months ago. The beneficiary, Michael Bennett. The room tilted. Michael knew, I whispered. The signature appears to be Michael's, but we've found several forged documents in this case, Morrison said carefully. Michael's hands trembled as he looked at it. I never, he looked at me. Mum, I didn't take out this policy. Why would I? Morrison placed more documents down. Were you aware your wife was making arrangements to place your mother in a memory care facility in Tucson? Michael picked up the emails. As he read, I watched his face, the genuine shock that couldn't be faked. Oh God, he whispered. What have they done? What have I let happen? Did you know about this? I asked quietly. No, he said, tears in his eyes. I swear, Mom. The life insurance, the nursing home, I had no idea. I thought they just wanted the house. I knew that was wrong, but this. Mr. Bennett, Morrison said, we need you to be completely honest now. What exactly did you know and when? Michael took a shaky breath. I'll tell you everything. Every deal, every scheme, every conversation, all of it. Over the next 2 hours, Michael detailed everything. He'd gotten involved 4 years ago when Frank approached him at an investment seminar. Early investments seemed legitimate, but then Frank got him into a deal that failed, or was designed to fail. Frank offered to help him recover the money through other investments that required signing documents and creating shell companies. When did you realize they were illegal? Chen asked. Gradually, Michael admitted. Questions I didn't ask because I didn't want to know the answers. Red flags I ignored because I was desperate. And your mother's house? Frank started talking about the neighborhood rezoning opportunity 8 months ago. He made it sound like we'd be helping Mom transition while securing our financial future. He shook his head. I was lying to myself. I watched my son through the glass afterward as Sandra and I spoke with Morrison. That was extensive cooperation, Morrison said. Between his testimony and your evidence, we have solid cases against the entire Carter family. What happens to Michael? I asked. Given his cooperation and the fact we believe he wasn't aware of the most serious aspects, the life insurance, the institutionalization plan, he'll likely be offered a plea deal, probably fraud charges, 2 to 3 years, possibly less with good behavior. I nodded slowly. My son would go to prison, but he wouldn't be destroyed completely. There would be a chance for him to rebuild. What do you recommend I do? I asked Sandra. That depends on what you want, she replied. I looked through the glass at my son, who sat with his head in his hands. I need some time to think, I said. 6 weeks later, I stood in my kitchen making coffee. Early morning light filtered through the windows. The house was mine again. Within 3 weeks, Sandra had secured a preliminary injunction. The property was legally frozen. The Carters couldn't sell it or transfer it further. While the full civil case would take months to resolve, I had control back, and the judge had recognized the likelihood of success on the merits of my fraud claim. My accounts were mostly recovered too, about 70%. Combined with my pension, I'd be fine. Sandra arrived with pastries. "Morning, ready for the meeting?" The meeting was with the prosecutor. Michael's plea hearing was scheduled for next week. "Have you decided what you're going to say?" Sandra asked. "I think so," I replied. "I've been working on it all week." Over the past 6 weeks, I'd had time to heal. The Carters were in custody awaiting trial, facing decades in prison. Their victims were rebuilding. The rezoning scheme had been stopped. Michael remained in county jail. I'd visited him twice, brief, painful meetings where we talked about what happened. He never asked me to speak on his behalf. He simply apologized and accepted responsibility. "The Carters are trying to negotiate plea deals," Sandra said. "Frank is looking at 15 years, Linda 12, Patricia 14. "And Michael?" I asked. "The offer is still 2 years, reduced to 18 months with good behavior. He'll plead guilty to fraud and conspiracy charges." I walked to the window, looking at the garden I'd been restoring. New roses were planted where the Carters had torn out the old ones. "I'm going to tell the prosecutor that I support the plea deal," I said finally. "Not because I forgive Michael, I'm not there yet, but because I believe in proportional justice. He wasn't the mastermind. He was weak and foolish, but he wasn't cruel, and he's cooperated fully." Sandra nodded. "That's fair. More than fair." "David would want me to give him a chance," I added. "Not to let him escape consequences, but not to destroy him completely." A week later, I sat in the courtroom for Michael's plea hearing. He stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit, thin and older looking than his 42 years. When the judge asked if anyone wished to speak, I stood. "Your Honour, I'm Margaret Bennett, the victim in this case. I'd like to say something." The judge nodded. I walked to the podium. The words came naturally. "Your Honour, what my son did to me was devastating. He betrayed my trust in the worst possible way. The pain will stay with me for the rest of my life. But I've spent the last 2 months thinking about justice, about punishment, about redemption. I've worked in banking compliance for over 30 years. I understand accountability and proportional response. My son made terrible choices. He was weak when he should have been strong. He deserves consequences, and I believe the plea agreement provides appropriate accountability. But I also believe he deserves the chance to rebuild himself. Not for his sake, for the principle that our justice system should aim to rehabilitate, not just punish. I support the plea agreement, Your Honour, not because I've forgiven my son, that may take years, but because I believe in fairness and this is fair." I returned to my seat. Michael was crying silently. The judge asked him if he had anything to say. "Yes, Your Honour," Michael said, his voice hoarse. He turned to me. "Mum, I know an apology isn't enough. It will never be enough, but I am so sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. Dad deserved better. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to become someone you could be proud of again." The judge accepted the plea deal. Michael would serve 21 months, followed by 3 years of probation. He'd pay restitution and lose his real estate license. It was done. As I left the courtroom, Sandra beside me, I felt an unexpected sense of closure. "How are you feeling?" Sandra asked. "Tired," I admitted, but also lighter somehow. Like I can finally start moving forward. We drove toward my neighbourhood in comfortable silence. The Phoenix sun was warm, the sky impossibly blue. "What's next for you?" Sandra asked. "I've been thinking about that," I said. "Remember David's Medical Research Foundation?" "You want to expand it to include elder protection services," Sandra remembered. "I want to move forward with that. Use my experience to help other seniors who might be targeted. Legal support, fraud prevention education, victim advocacy. That's wonderful, Margaret. When do you want to start? I already have, I admitted. I've been meeting with some of my former colleagues. We're putting together a proposal for the foundation board next month. Sandra smiled. David would be so proud. I think so too, I said. Finding purpose in the pain, he used to say, making something good out of something bad. We pulled up in front of my house. The roses were blooming beautifully, the lawn perfectly maintained, every room exactly as I wanted it. My home, reclaimed and restored. Thank you for everything, Sandra, I said. I couldn't have done this without you. That's what friends are for, she replied. Now go rest. You've earned it. But I didn't rest. Instead, I spent the afternoon in David's study, working on the foundation proposal. The work absorbed me completely, giving me purpose beyond just recovering. My phone rang. Detective Morrison. Mrs. Bennett, I wanted to let you know we've identified 2 more victims of the Carter operation in Dallas. With your case setting precedent, they're now able to file civil suits to recover their assets. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely pleased. It's because of you, Morrison replied. Your willingness to come forward to fight back. It opened the door for others to get justice too. After we hung up, I sat for a moment, letting that sink in. What started as a personal nightmare had become something larger. My fight had helped others. The pain had purpose. That evening, I made dinner in my kitchen and ate at the table David and I had bought 30 years ago. The house was quiet, but not lonely, peaceful. As the sun set, I went to the back porch with a glass of wine. The garden stretched before me, bathed in golden light. I thought about David, about the life we'd built, about the son we'd raised who lost his way but might still find it again. The future was uncertain. My relationship with Michael might never fully heal. The losses wouldn't simply disappear, but I was still here, still strong, still fighting. And that, I thought, taking a sip of wine, was enough, more than enough. It was everything. If you or someone you know is experiencing elder financial abuse, please contact the National Centre on Elder Abuse at 1-800-677-1116 or your local adult protective services. You are not alone and help is available.